I am 10 where you are. Great stuff. Okay, we make a start, Kelly. Great. So, hi everyone. This is Thomas Newman of VIVA Financial Tuition, and I'm joining Kelly Davison's webinar today for the first half of the pre-scene analysis for the operational case study for November 2022. I think the session will probably be 2 hours total, a little bit more maybe. There'll be time for questions at the end. There will be a break at the midpoint as well. So about an hour in, Kelly will pause and we can all have a 5 to 10 minute break. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just spend maybe 10 minutes talking about the different course options that VIVA has, because today's webinar is free and the recording will be made available to anyone who is registered for the webinar. Feel free to share it. If you know of other students who are taking the exam in November or thinking about taking the exam, please do feel free to share it. So this is a free session, but this is the only free session that we will have. The rest of our course will be available only to VIVA students. So that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the different course options that VIVA has if you're thinking of taking the rest of the course. And then I'm going to hand over to Kelly and she's going to go through the pre-scene analysis. Okay, Kelly, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my my slides. Let me see. Okay. Can you see that, Kelly?
Yeah, can see that. Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks for confirming, Kelly. Okay, great. So I won't go on for too long. So this is just an overview of the full course options that VIVA has for the November 2022 OCS. Okay, so some of you will be familiar with VIVA Financial Tuition. Some of you may not be familiar with VIVA Financial Tuition. We've been around for about 6 years now. And there is good reason basically to trust VIVA. We've had a whole range of different students study with us over the years, and we've had about 9,000 students basically in that time. And over this period, we've had lots of prize-winning students, but we've also had students, you know, facing very difficult circumstances. Maybe they're repeating exams and they're getting stuck with the particular exam. And we've helped all sorts of students. We've had obviously mostly working professionals. There are people with families. There are people, you know, who are coming back to study after a long absence. Maybe they're, you know, in their 40s or 50s, and they're going back to do CIMA. But typically, you know, students are going to be in their 20s, working professionals looking to progress through the CIMA qualification and get great marks along the way. So we've just one example of one of our prize-winning students from a few years ago, Andrew Sherwood, an OCS prize winner. Actually, he took the MCS very recently and also won a prize, and again took his course with VIVA. So great to see that. Basically, we've analyzed lots and lots of case studies over the years. So I think we've done 60 plus cases at this rate across all 3 CIMA levels. So we're quite expert at it. 9,000 plus students in that time have taken exams with VIVA and taken courses with VIVA. We have a very high student satisfaction rating. So, you know, one thing I suppose is what VIVA says about itself, which, you know, we're obviously going to say good things about ourselves, but quite another thing I think is finding out what people really think and what people say about tuition providers on other platforms outside of the VIVA website. So Trustpilot, for example, is a very well-known review site where people can rate you know, businesses of all types. So go there, have a look at the different tuition options in CIMA, and what you'll find is that VIVA has overwhelmingly positive reviews. The last time I looked, which was last night, it was 4.7 out of 5. Okay, so really, really high. I'll send you the link to that review page so that you can look at students' comments. So we're CIMA specialists. Up until now, all of our focus has been on the CIMA qualification. Now that will probably change next year. We'll go into other qualifications too, but up until now, it's been all about CIMA. So we built up a lot of expertise over the years. Obviously with the pandemic recently, everyone's been moving online, everyone's been using Zoom, etc. But this is our natural environment. We were born online. We've always been a remote company. And that obviously gives you big advantages as a business in terms of being able to save costs. And what we do with that is we pass those cost savings on to our students in the form of a lower price. And again, if you just compare prices between VIVA and other more established tuition providers, the traditional tuition providers that everyone knows, you'll find that the prices are much better value with VIVA. The quality standards are really, really high as well. We take great pride in that. So we received the prestigious CIMA Global Pass Rate Excellence Award in 2020 from CIMA. We were one of only 6 tuition providers worldwide to win that award. And basically what it said was students taking exams with VIVA were exceeding average pass rates across the globe in 2020. So very proud of that particular recognition. Okay, so there are 2 very good options, I think, to unlock an OCS course in November 2022 with VIVA. One is called All Access Membership. The other is called the OCS Elite course. And depending on your needs, I think one may suit you better or the other may suit you better. So let's just talk about the what's included in both of these options. So with the All Access Membership, you get, it's a subscription style product. You get 365 days, i.e. 12 months of access from the point of purchase to all 12 of our CIMA courses. So that means you get access to our E1 course, our F1 course, our P1 course, our OCS course, our F2, P2, E2, MCS, E3, F3, P3, and SCS courses for a full 12 months. So any updates that are made to those courses, and they're updated all the time, you get access to that new version of the course. So when we come to May next year, you would have access to all of the new case studies because it's a new pre-scene. So that's basically all access in a nutshell. With the OCS Elite course, it's just one course. It's the OCS, but it's the elite version of the course. With the All Access membership, you get access to all of our standard courses. Okay, so they're more basic, but very, very good courses nonetheless. With the OCS Elite course, it's just one course. It's the OCS, but it's the Elite course. And I'll talk about what's included in the Elite course in a minute. With All Access, you get access. So if we're just going to focus on the OCS part of the All Access membership, what's contained in the OCS November 2022 standard course with the All Access membership? Well, you get 7 live webinars, including today's webinar. We'll talk about what they are in a minute. You also get that included with the OCS Elite course. With the All Access membership, you get 3 OCS November 2022 mocks. So they're based on this pre-scene. They're completely new and updated to be relevant for this window and this pre-scene. You get model solutions included there as well, but you do not get marking. The difference with the OCS Elite course for November 2020 is you get the 3 mocks, you get the 3 solutions, plus you get personalized marking and feedback from a tutor included. And that's very, very important. That is one of, if not the most important thing you can do to score a high mark in your exam. So what else included in the OCS Elite course that is not included in All Access? Well, you get an additional 6 live workshops with your tutor, Kelly. They're 2 hours each, very interactive sessions, highly focused on exam technique and passing on the day of the exam. You get access to a private community with your tutor. So you're interacting with your tutor on pretty much a daily basis. This is a very, very active community. You're discussing the case outside of these formal classes and formal mocks. And there's a pass guarantee included with the OCS Elite course. So that means that if you fail in November 2022, you get a free repeat in February 2023. Okay, so that's our assurance there. So there are the high-level differences between those 2 course options. The All Access membership is great for, independent learners who want to do many exams, maybe in the space of 12 months. So maybe they're thinking about doing 2, 3, maybe 4 exams or more. Whereas the OCS Elite course is best for students who are looking for maximum support. Okay, they want to score a really high mark, or maybe it's a student who has struggled a lot with the OCS exam and failed multiple times, and they're looking for the very best course that they can find. We believe the OCS Elite course is the best OCS course on the market. Obviously, we would say that, but again, I would encourage you to go to Trustpilot, read the reviews. There are quite a few reviews from former Elite course students who talk about that particular course. So it's a really complete option. The all access option is great too. It's different. There's less personalized support. You don't get the marking. You don't get the same amount at all of tutored attention. But there's a big library of videos and mock exams and questions and things like that. So absolutely great too. It just depends on your learning style, I think. Okay, so let's just get into the detail about what's included in the standard course. Okay, so the standard course is included as part of all access. Of course, you get access to all of this too as part of your OCS Elite course. So you've got foundational materials first. So that's the one on the left there. So these materials are recordings of an E1 theory review, an F1 theory review, a P1 theory review. So for those of you who are coming back to these subjects after some time, this is a great way to refresh your memory and to look at the high-level main theories from each of those subjects to remind yourself of what they are. There's a series of videos on preparing for the case, so what you do with the pre-scene, what your role is and what the expectations are there, and what the examiner is actually looking for. There's a series of videos on exam day strategy, okay? So what you do on the day of the exam, how do you manage your time, the do's and don'ts, how to win quick marks, etc. Very, very practical. And the most recent edition here is a series of videos on good answer versus bad answer, really, really practical again, where we walk you through what a good answer actually is. So we take a script, a good script, and tell you why it's great. And then we take a not so good script and we tell you why it's not great, okay? Then you've got in the middle here, the webinars, the 7 webinars that you get access to as part of all access, your standard course there, also included in the OCS Elite. So these are live webinars, they're recorded, they're put up on the website after, so don't worry if you miss one, everything's recorded and put up on the website after. Today's session is the 24th of September, 10 a.m. UK time, 2 hours in length, more or less, a little bit more. So it's the first part of the pre-scene. That's the only free session available. The rest, then you have to be either an all access member or have an OCS standard course or be an OCS Elite course student. You've got an industry analysis tomorrow with Kelly. Then you've got the OCS pre-scene analysis part 2. Okay, so that's the second half of the pre-scene on Monday, including the financial statements. Then in October, you've got an E1 applied session, and then following that up with an F1 applied and then a P1 applied sessions. These are possibly the best webinars that you do on the course, the most useful, because what Kelly does here is she highlights the maybe 4 most important theories from each of these subjects as they apply to this pre-scene. So we take those 4 theories for each subject. We talk about, we remind you what they are. We talk through the theory. Then we show you in the pre-scene where they're coming up and how you would answer a question if it came up on exam day using these theories. Okay. And then we wrap the webinars up there with the OCS key issues, which takes the top 10 issues from the pre-scene and talks about how they could come up on exam day and how you would answer them. And on the right there, you've got the 3 mock exams based on this pre-scene. They come with model solutions. Okay, so that's the high-level overview of the standard course, which you get as part of all access, and of course that is also covered off in the OCS Elite course. The next elements then that I'm going to talk about are only part of the Elite course. So you've got these 6 workshops, each of them 2 hours each, okay? Highly interactive sessions. So there's a lot of back and forth between students and Kelly. So you learn from the student group, you learn from Kelly. These are more intentionally kept to a smaller size, whereas on the webinars, you're likely to have 50, 60 students. So it would be chaos if they were very interactive. The workshops are more like 10 students, 12 students. So everyone gets to contribute and very, very focused on exam technique and debriefing the mocks. Okay, so the 3 mock exams you do and you produce answers to, not only are you going to get feedback and corrections, Kelly's going to walk you through those after you do them. So she's going to talk about what to look out for, what a good answer would have looked like, etc. Really, really useful. On the right there, you've got just an extract from one of our fictional students here. I've changed the name, Tony Soprano. So this is a report from a mock, OCS mock 1 from August 22, and it gives you a breakdown across the different core activities and subjects, so you can see where you're weak, where you're strong, how you compare to the VIVA average for that particular mock. So really, really useful. And then on the second page of that report, you've got a huge amount of detail, comments, marks, etc., for your particular script. Okay. So marking is only included with the elite course. The other thing included with the elite course is an active, and I put emphasis on that word because, as I said, you're going to be active here on a daily basis, private community, okay, with your tutor. So this is where Kelly's going to be really active, posting interesting articles outside of the formal classes. You're going to have input from the VIVA team, linking to examiner reports, what to look out for, etc. You're going to have a lot of back and forth between your tutor, Kelly, and yourself. So they're just some extracts from the August 22 elite course community. So that's a really, really useful feature. Okay, so we think that's a winning formula. As we said, we've benchmarked this against other OCS courses. We think that it's possibly the best OCS course on the market. So it includes all of the elements, all of the elements of a successful course, okay? So you've got personal coaching with your tutor, you've got email contact, you've got community contact, chat contact with your tutor on an ongoing basis. When you sum up all of the webinars and the workshop sessions, it adds up to about 26 hours of live class time. They're all recorded, they're all put up on the website after. You can look at them after as well. You've got access to a lot of on-demand content. So the foundational materials I talked about, the theory overviews, and preparing for the exam day strategy, the good answer, bad answer, etc. The mocks themselves with marking, very, very crucial. And you can draw on the student group as well. So as I said, it's a smaller student group that does the OCS Elite course. So you're able basically to interact with them quite a lot. Okay, next steps then. So if you're interested in taking the OCS Elite course, and I've already mentioned this to Kelly, we already have quite a few students who are on the Elite course. So if you want to get on this course, it's the following options. Now, I don't think I've actually mentioned the full price of the Elite course in any place. It's £499 for the OCS Elite course, okay? Now, we recognize that that's quite a bit of money, but we wouldn't ask for it if it wasn't a high-value course. This gets results, okay? And if you compare this course to other courses like it on the market, you will typically find that courses like this go for £1,000, £800, £900. They're much more expensive, basically. But as I said before, because VIVA has certain cost advantages, we're able to keep the prices lower. So this is a great elite type course, and it offers great value for money. We tried to make it as easy to pay this as possible. So what we ask initially is just a £99 deposit. That books your place on the course. And then the remaining £400 you can pay over 4 months. Okay. So starting in October, you would pay £100, then in November, another £100, December, another £100, and in January of 2023, you would finish your payments, another £100. So that allows you to spread the payment down. But it's $499 in total. That's much better value than, as I said, than other courses of its kind. I'll send you the link to pay the £99 deposit to book your place today. And if you pay that deposit, you'll get an email straight away after with all of the links to the different workshops, the private community, etc. So that's the Elite course. If you have any doubts after this, please send an email to info@vivatuition.com. If you're interested in the all access option, here are the next steps. Okay, so all access, it's a different animal. We're not exactly comparing, apples with apples here. As I said, great for an independent student who wants to take multiple exams over the next year. The standard price for the All Access membership is £399. Now, that £399 unlocks access to 12 courses, okay? The standard courses. So works out at about £34 per course, which is absolutely crazy value for money. What we're going to do today is we're going to drop the price from £399. For the next 48 hours, we're going to drop that to £249, okay? For attendees on this webinar, £249. So it's crazy value, basically. It's 12 months of access, as I said, to all of the standard courses that we have on the website. So the first step you've done, you've registered for this webinar. It's free. Well done. Okay, you're off to a great start. I'll send you the link in the chat box to the special discount offer of $249. And then once you pay for that, you'll get emails with all of the webinar links and the access to the standard course on the website. Okay. Again, any doubts, info@vivatuition.com. I'll keep an eye on the chat. I'll pop in and out over the course of the next 2 hours to see if there are any questions related to the All Access or the OCS Elite course. Important to mention that, you know, Kelly, she's the OCS expert, so she'll talk all day about the OCS and the theory, etc. But, you know, the person to ask about the purchase options and which is the right course, etc., that would be me. Okay. So any doubts, please send them to info@vivatuition.com. We'll get right back to you today, or just pop a message into the chat box here. So I hope that's clear. You know, I know I'm comparing two things that they're not quite the same. You know, as I said, All Access, 12 standard courses. Okay, great for students working through multiple exams over the next year. The OCS Elite course, it's a different thing, very focused on this particular case. It's, you know, a best in class type course, very, very involved, lots of personalized tuition involved with that one. So two different things. We hope that, you know, they meet the needs of all students, basically. So there's that email again. I'll pop it into the chat box. So there we go. I'm not going to waste more of your time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand over to Kelly, and I'll take a look at. Let's see if we've got anything coming through to the chat box. Or the...
So there has been a couple of questions, and I think I've sourced those as they've come through on the Q&A.
Yes. Recording of the webinar. So it'll be emailed to you tomorrow, most likely, or Monday. And on Monday as well, you'll find the recording up on the website. So everything that we do, all of these webinars and workshops, they're all recorded. They're all put up on the website after. Okay. Great stuff. Okay, Kelly.
I think there's just one question on there, Thomas, that I didn't source, and it was in relation to whether you can pay a top up.
Let's see. Yes, you can. So we will have members on the All Access members on the webinar today. And you can upgrade to the OCS Elite course. You'll keep your All Access membership. So what I would suggest there is send us an email at info@vivatuition.com. Send it today and we'll get you sorted, okay? But yes, you can upgrade, absolutely. Okay, so that's it, I think, Kelly. I'm going to hand it over to you. I'll hang around for a little bit and just I'll shout if the pre-scene is not displaying or something like that, but there we go. That's it.
That should be up there now for everybody to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Superb.
Okay, Kelly, best of luck. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Right then, good morning, everybody. As Thomas quite just said there, I'm going to be looking after you. I'm going to be supporting you throughout the duration of your operational case study, starting today with one of two, if you like, in relation to the analysis of the pre-scene material. As Thomas mentioned, what we'll do is we'll work through this, the first half of the pre-scene. I will have a 5-minute break about an hour in, and then we'll wait until the very end of the session for any questions that you might have that might come up as we're running through the pre-scene. This pre-scene annotated will be made available to you, so you will have access to this if you are booked on to our courses. Okay, then now you may or may not be aware or fully aware of how the operational case study works, but ultimately what you guys have got is this detailed pre-seen material. Basically, what's going to happen in the exam is your exam itself will be based upon this case study that you've got access to. Now, please don't be put off by the fact that in here, what you've got is approximately 30 pages worth of pre-seen material. It sounds a lot, but it's all important because basically this pre-seen material will provide you with the background of the industry that is going to get examined. It will provide you with background about the actual business that you are going to be tested on, and it'll provide you with some information and some ideas, if you like, in relation to areas that we think could possibly actually be part of the actual exam itself. So from our experience, because we've seen so many pre-seens in the past, what we can do is we can pick out and unpick this pre-seen to give you a bit more insight into the areas that we think are, how do you put it, highly examinable, I think, in relation to this. Now, as you can see then, this pre-seen is going to be used for obviously your November exam, but it's also going to be used in February because pre-seen materials are released twice a year. So you've got 2 bites at the cherry in relation to this if you need it. Now, as you can see then, this pre-seen is in relation to a company called FireWorks. Interestingly, it's got nothing to do with the sort of standard fireworks, but actually it's in relation to outdoor grilling, in fact, and that's the industry that we're dealing with. Now, my intention then is to work through the content of this pre-seen with you. What I've done is we've added annotations as we've been going through in here, just picking out sort of snippets of ideas of areas that we think are important, where you might want to do some additional research, but also areas of your P1, E1 and F1 syllabi that we think are going to be particularly important. So for example, we'll see as we're going through, FireWorks actually uses currently a total absorption costing basis to actually absorb their overheads. Now, what you might want to do is you might want to think about how they could improve that by looking at something like activity-based costing as an example. So again, as we're running through, you'll see my annotations in here, and you'll see the areas that we think you should be focusing on. Okay then, so on the first page there then, you can see that you've got your content. As I said, we will be doing a full analysis of this pre-seen. So please rest assured that the areas that are covered in terms of content here will all be covered as we go through the 2 sessions. Today we're going to cover half of it. Right, first things first then, who are you? Now, what you've got to remember is you've got to really take on board this pre-seen, and this is the hat that you need to put on. This is your role. This is the persona that you need to take when it comes to the exam. Now, with reference to this then, you are a finance officer, okay, and you're working alongside the finance department at FireWorks. Now, as I said, FireWorks is an outdoor grill company, and what we've done is we've provided you with a couple of examples of real world examples. So businesses such as Weber, Charbroil and also Traeger are real world examples. So it might be an idea for you to do maybe a little bit of research on those. But for those of you joining me tomorrow, I will be running through the industry analysis in relation to those areas as well. So you're a finance officer. Now, as a finance officer, what you've got to remember is that you are not at the strategic apex of this organisation. Yeah, you are not in a position where you are going to be making strategic decisions yourself. You are in a position where you are going to be supporting and assisting the decision-making process. So I suppose what I'm saying in there then is know where you are in terms of your career, if you like, in this particular exam. The last thing we want you to be thinking about at this point is, you know, what the overall strategic direction of the business actually is, because that is way outside of your pay scale at this particular point in time. But what you're going to be doing is you're going to be providing the information to actually assist in the decision-making process. So that's where you need to see yourself fitting within the organisation. So what's your role going to be? Well, you're going to be providing and being involved in the preparation of management accounts and ultimately providing the information to aid that decision-making process. However, on top of that, you're also going to be supporting with the preparation of the year-end financial statements as well. So you can see in there, guys, that you're going to be looking at P1 from a management accounting perspective, and the financial statements prep, you're looking at your F1 syllabi in there. So it's going to be a real mixture of those sort of two different areas. Now, with reference to this then, what type of things are you going to be involved in? Well, with reference to this, we're going to be thinking more about shorter term focus in here. So thinking about short-term decisions. We're not thinking about the 5-year plan in here is essentially what I'm saying. So we're looking at the short-term decision-making process. So thinking about things like dealing with non-current assets. Do we actually purchase non-current assets outright? Do we actually lease them? Excuse me, what would be the implications for the business in that situation? So it's very much a short-term focus. We're going to be thinking about costing as well. Now, the biggie here, and the one that we see all of the time in the exam, it is digital costing. So you need to make sure that you're not ignoring digital costing. Make sure that you are absolutely all over it. We see it increasingly examined. And we'll see how that's relevant to FireWorks as we run through. Budgets then are going to be really important. So you need to make sure that you are comfortable with the different types of budgets. As we'll see later on, FireWorks currently uses an incremental budgeting system, so whereby they will take the previous accounting period and then adjust it accordingly for this current year. There might be better ways that the business can budget. So, for example, using zero-based budgeting or using rolling budgets could be an alternative example. So do make sure that you are comfortable with the different types of budget setting processes, and think about the pros and cons associated with those as well, and where it might be relevant for organizations to use them. Now, another biggie is variances. You know, we see variances all of the time in operational case study for obvious reasons, really. You know, variances are really important in terms of controlling our costs and managing our costs and making sure that we're not spending more than we should be, and also highlighting weaknesses in our control as well. But it's treated very differently. Okay, treated very differently, because when you've done P1 and when you've done your variances, it's been more about how you calculate them, hasn't it? Now, at this stage, it's about the application, it's about the interpretation of those variances. So rather than actually having to do any of the calculations in here, because believe me, in this exam, you have very few calculations to do. Most of the calculations will be done for you. What you've got to do is you've got to drill down into them. You've got to drill down into them and explain what it means for a company such as FireWorks if you have got adverse or favourable variances. Also thinking about how those variances have come to fruition and the reason for those variances. So what's caused the variance to actually occur during the accounting period. Working capital management is another biggie in here. Again, short-term focus, thinking about working capital. So thinking about the influences on your working capital, your receivables, your payables, your cash position, your inventories is an area that we need to think about. Now, I've just mentioned cash management is going to be key. So you might be thinking about, or the organisation, FireWorks, might be thinking about expanding their business operations. How are we going to finance that? Do we have sufficient cash reserves in there? And if not, what might be the alternatives that we can use to actually manage our cash position? Now, risk. That's a big area in here. So thinking about managing risk, you know, at the end of the day, we can't get rid of all risks, unfortunately. If we could, that would be great, but that's not the case. So with risk management, we're going to be thinking about the tools that you can use from a risk management perspective. So thinking about things like decision trees, payoff tables, expected values, sensitivity analysis, what if analysis. So thinking about how those risks to some degree can be managed in line with expectations. And then finally, you've got the assisting with the financial statements prep. So dealing with your year-end position in here. Year-end position then, so accounting adjustments at the year-end, appropriate accounting treatment. You know, how should we value our inventories? You know, how should we reflect our non-current assets at the end of the accounting period? Thinking about assets held for sale, thinking about recognition. So again, you might have to give advice on things like what should be capitalised in relation to the acquisition of a non-current asset. Okay, now that doesn't cover everything, obviously, but that gives you an idea of some of the areas which we're going to focus on. And again, I'm hoping that you can see there the correlation between what you've done on E1, P1 and F1 in relation to those areas. Now, one other thing to just mention at this stage is the CIMA Code of Ethics. Obviously, that's a biggie when it comes to your E1 syllabi. You need to make sure that any advice that you give in this exam, because remember, it's quite a practical exam. This is not about answering a question. It's a practical exam. It's a case study. It's about the scenario. It's about application. Any advice or support that you give has to be in line with the CIMA Code of Ethics. So you need to make sure that you are comfortable with the code and make sure that you are very, very clear on when that code of ethics needs to be applied, which is always essentially in the scheme of things. Okay, then, so that's you. You are the finance officer and you are supporting the finance team with that decision-making process. Okay, then next, let's think about the company itself. Now, this is when we're getting into the detail. So who are FireWorks then? Well, they're a company that are designing and manufacturing and selling a range of outdoor grills. Notice that it says a range of outdoor grills in there. So we're going to have a number of different products in here that we're going to have to deal with. Whenever I see a range of products, what I'm thinking about is, you know, what influences that could have on things like when we sell more or less of a particular product. So thinking about things like sales variances in there. However, I digress, but we're thinking here about a company who designs, manufactures and sells a range of outdoor grills. They're based in Beeline. Beeline is a country in Europe and they use the B dollar in here as well. That's the currency that you're going to be using. Now, the products then that they sell are movable standalone grills. They can be located absolutely anywhere in an outdoor setting as it currently stands. Okay, then, so first things first then, they're based in Europe. There are pros and cons, obviously, associated with that. So with reference to the pros and cons then, pros, obviously, in Europe, we're going to have quite a strong, good infrastructure. We're going to have skilled workers. There's going to be local customers who've got quite high purchasing power in here as well. However, there are some issues. There are some cons associated with this. It's going to be quite expensive to operate. So we're going to have to make sure that we are controlling our costs very, very closely. Now, the other thing to just be mindful of is there's going to be a large amount of regulation as well that we have to adhere to. And one of those areas could be in relation to things like your corporate and social responsibility and also environmental and sustainability concerns as well. Okay, so there's pros and cons associated with each of them. Now, the second paragraph then tells us about how the business was formed. So they have been founded quite a long time ago now, 1984. So they've been in existence for 38 years, which means that they've got a really good track record, as you can probably appreciate. So basically, this was set up by David and Debbie Wheeler. It's a family company in that respect. Now, because it is a family company, you've got pros and cons again associated with that. Pros then being that there is a long-term vision in relation to this, because it's in everybody's best interest for this organisation to work. So there is a long-term view. There is this solidarity associated with families working together. And so therefore, there's not really going to be any what we call agency problems in there and using intermediaries at the end of the day, because it's in their best interest for this organisation to operate well. Problem you've got with this is there could be conflicts in relation to those families, couldn't there? Could be conflicting ideas, conflicts in relation to the relationships that exist. So feuds could come to the forefront. There might be resistance to change because it's always been done this way, so why not continue on that basis? And you could come across situations where there is nepotism in relation to the decision-making process, and also the people involved in the business as well. Because it is a family-owned company, it's highly likely that this is a private company rather than a PLC in this situation. Okay, then, so Debbie and David set up this organisation in 1984. It's based on the fact that they've got lots of experience socialising in North America while on holiday, eating outside, etc. Now, prior to finding them, FireWorks, David was an executive in the marketing sector, and Debbie was a production manager in a metalworks company. So you can see there that they have got some relevant experience in relation to this. We could have optimized on David's executive experience in marketing, and Debbie obviously understands metalwork, and a lot of the grills that we're going to be dealing with are obviously got metal components in there as well. Now, what happened is they received an inheritance. It was unexpected, and they invested in a small manufacturing plant, which then eventually became FireWorks. So from the get-go of this company, what they've done is they've manufactured the products themselves. So there's been no buying in of components in here. They've done the manufacturing process from the get-go. So as we saw at the very beginning there, they design, they manufacture, they sell this range of outdoor grills. So there is a lot of control over the operations in here. Okay, so moving on then, it says Debbie and David then are both passionate then about food and the great outdoors. They wanted to inspire other people about dining and eating outdoors. At the time, few inhabitants of Beeland owned an outdoor grill. And so what they did is they identified a gap in the market. And the gap in the market, and this is something that you're going to see increasingly in the pre-scene, that they wanted to supply quality, easy to use grills. Okay, now whenever you see the word quality in there, what you've got to think is that that is going to be FireWorks USP, unique selling point in here. So our customers are going to be acquiring our products because of the quality of those products. And you're going to see that word used a lot as we're going through. Now, when I think of quality, I also think of price as well. So quite often, if you think about it, quality and price go hand in hand. We might be able to get economies of scale, however. But it just proves, doesn't it, that Debbie and David were able to capitalize on a market opportunity in here. They saw that market opportunity and they took it. Now, with reference to this quality, or these quality, easy to use grills, then what we've got to think about in here is the importance of that for our selling prices or our selling points. Durability, ease of use. That's what we mean by the quality and the easy to use grills. Okay, let's move on then. So it says the first of the grills then, launched in 84, as we know, was a simple, but it was a high quality design. Again, we see quality in there, and it was fueled by charcoal. Okay, now charcoal is a little bit controversial, as you can probably appreciate, due to the emissions into the environment, but also the impact of charcoal on health when you're actually grilling products. So maybe that's something that we need to consider as we're running through, whether or not we possibly need to change from charcoal grills, but we'll see that as we run through. Now, it was sold through specialist outdoor furniture retailers and large garden centres. So we were using an intermediary to actually sell these products initially. We weren't selling direct to our customers at this particular point in time. So it was sold through these specialist outdoor furniture retail businesses, garden centres, etc. In 1984 then, it was a particularly good summer. Sales were really healthy, and as this was a high quality product, they established a really good reputation. Now, there's just something I want to mention about this. It said there was a particularly good summer, which makes me think that there is seasonality associated with this. Think about the type of product in here. So there is going to be seasonality. So when it comes to things like forecasting, we're possibly going to have to use things like time series analysis to help us out with that. So the demand for grills, etc., is going to change throughout an accounting period for obvious reasons. So in the summer months, then we'll see more products being sold than in the winter months in there, and that then could also have an impact on our pricing strategy during the accounting period as well. Okay, so as the concept then of outdoor cooking continued, it gained popularity in Beeland, they expanded their range. So in 1998, they also introduced gas-fueled grills in here. And then more recently in 2018, electric-powered. This is good to see. Continuous innovation is taking place. That continuous innovation then does demonstrate that the company can create, they can launch new products, and these new products can and have been successful as well. Now, hopefully that is something that is going to continue, and there may be some additional launches taking place when it comes to the exam day material. Okay, so with only a few exceptions then, due to recessions, bad weather, etc., they experienced sales growth every year since its foundation. That's good, that's excellent, it's moving in the right direction in terms of trajectory. So we've got a really impressive trading history in here since the beginning, since the get-go. But again, it does say in there, due to a recession or exceptionally bad weather. So we can see here that the weather itself, which is something that we cannot control, unfortunately, does play a vital role in terms of the number of products that we sell. Okay, but again, it is moving in the right direction, and it has done since the inception 38 years ago. However, 2018, big change. David and Debbie have retired. The running then has been passed over to their youngest child. She spent her early career then working as a chef in top restaurants throughout Europe. So it's going to be something that she prides herself on in terms of making sure that the grills that they're still producing and selling produce this sort of top quality product as well. Okay, now prior to taking over then, Catherine did work with her parents for 4 years. That's good, because you might be inclined to think, well, she's come in as a chef and she's got no experience of this particular sector whatsoever. However, she has worked closely with David and Debbie for 4 years prior to actually taking over. She's got tons of ideas and she wants to grow the company. So that's good. It's something that's been instilled by her parents, obviously part of the family. They're looking to keep pushing the business forward, which is good for us to actually see in here. And again, it could be subject to one of the potential scenarios in the exam. So currently then, FireWorks operates from 3 sites. They are located within 10 kilometres of each other. You've got head office, you've got production facilities, and you've got the distribution centre as well. They do not operate any retail outlets. Okay, now, why are they telling us that? It's a potential exam scenario, isn't it? If you think about it, they could open up their own retail outlets in Beeland. So that could be a potential exam scenario that you might be faced with. In 2021 then, so last year, FireWorks sales volumes were split. There was 68% which were through intermediaries, so through your retailers at your large garden centres and retail outlets, and that's in Beeland, and 20% was direct to customers. This was through the website, 12% to third-party agents based in other countries. So that's how it's broken down. Notice there that it tells us that 20% of these were sold to customers in Beeland. There may be an opportunity in there. Okay, so we may be looking to possibly expand into a different location, yeah, because it's very much based on B-land at the moment. So we might be thinking about possible growth, as Catherine wants to see, possible growth into other countries in here. But we could do that direct as opposed to using third-party agents. We probably would get better margins from that, I think it is fair to say, because of the fact that the third-party agent would obviously be taking their sort of share of those profits. So yeah, might be an opportunity for us to think about. We've then got some bits on profit. So it says in the year up to June 22, so in the previous accounting period, revenue was 76.5 million B dollars. Gross profit 32.2 million, and profit before tax was 6.9 million in here. They sold 192,500 grills in that year, and they had 316 employees. Now, all your employees live and work in B-land. So we've obviously got quite a local customer base, and also a local employee base as well. Why is that going to be important? Well, you know, for us, we want to be seen as a good good neighbour as such in terms of corporate and social responsibility. And therefore we are employing quite a few local staff. So it's all about giving something back to the community, isn't it, from a corporate and social responsibility perspective. However, they've got pretty healthy profits, I should say. And as we'll see in due course, we are going to be able to do some analysis, because you have been provided with financial statements, you've been provided with budgets, and what we've done is we've pulled together some of the key standard ratios, which we will run through in due course. Okay, so what is FireWorks ethos then? Okay, so we've already seen that their emphasis is on high quality products in here. So what do they want to do? What's their ethos? What's their mission? I suppose is probably the best way of putting it. They want to create grills that will enhance the outdoor eating experience. Because Catherine is this, professionally trained chef, she wants to be at the forefront of outdoor cooking trends in B-land and possibly wider as well. She states that the business is about creating opportunities for hospitality and friendship, and not just welding metal in there. It suggests then that the organisation in here might choose to diversify in here. Now, one of the areas that she might choose to diversify into could be thinking about cooking classes or cookery classes in relation to the outdoor grilling experience. Now, again, I am just surmising that from this information, but like she states there, it's about creating opportunities, hospitality, friendship. The whole ethos there is not just about, here is a grill, use it. So there has to be other elements associated with that. So as I said, a real opportunity in there to diversify. And what's her vision then? Enable people in B-land to socialise outdoors while enjoying a vast range of food perfectly cooked on one of the FireWorks grills. Just a point on advertising there. So it says the advertising for FireWorks always includes the phrase FireWorks for delicious food. So we're actually putting those hand in hand together. Okay, so that is what we need to be able to achieve. Okay, now in terms of sustainability, as it states, Catherine's really concerned about this. So with reference to that, we must ensure that the raw materials that we use and production is ethical and is sustainably sourced as well. That is always quite a big emphasis with operational case study. It's about the implications of what we do. Now, this is where I think you've got to be a little bit careful with this, because this is something that Catherine is obviously really clearly concerned about. It will underpin everything that they do. We need to make sure that if this is something that we are shouting about, about the ethical sourcing of raw materials, the sustainability of those raw materials that we're using, that we do get it right. You know, we cannot be in a position where we end up contradicting what our sort of ethos is in relation to sustainability. Now, one of the ways then that we can ensure this sustainability is making sure that we've got really good relationships with our suppliers. And that's an area that has been increasingly important for FireWorks in here. And they want to become carbon neutral within a 6-year period. And they continue to strive to improve this in their supply chain, the manufacturing process, and the outward logistics as well. So here, this is a really big commitment from a corporate and social responsibility perspective. And therefore, these elements, ethical and responsible sourcing, must form part of any decision that's actually been made. So if we are looking at, you know, actually getting new suppliers, we need to make sure that these areas are considered. Now, with reference to your suppliers as well, in order for us to get to that carbon neutral point, then we need to make sure that it's important to remember those sustainability goals when we choose a supplier. And that's an increasing question actually that we get with operational case study. Quite often you'll be in a position where you need to choose a new supplier and you'll have to analyse the data in relation to that supplier. Please don't forget about responsibility in relation to the ethical and the sustainability side of things. Now, with reference to this then, let's think about a couple of perspectives. So with F1, for example, what you might find is that there is some incentives that have been put in place from a tax perspective. So it could be that they might get, you know, 100% fair share allowances in relation to emission-friendly machinery or equipment or in fact vehicles in there as well. So that could be a really good incentive for the organisation such as FireWorks to invest in. But also what you've got to consider is that if they want to become carbon neutral within 6 years, it's highly likely, isn't it, that some of their equipment, some of their vehicles, etc., will need to be replaced. And you will need to have more energy efficient machinery, energy efficient equipment, energy efficient motor vehicles and distribution vehicles as well. So therefore IAS 16 and IFRS 16 come in. IAS 16 property, plant and equipment. IFRS 16 could be in relation to leases, and we'll see later on that there's some quite obscure adjustments in relation to leases that we'll see later on. Okay, so that's the ethos. Lots of emphasis there on corporate and social responsibility, lots of emphasis on sustainability and ethics, and lots of emphasis on the fact that we don't just want to be known as welding together metal and actually selling these grills. It's more about the experience associated with that as well. Okay, so we know about the background, we know about the ethos. What we then need to think about is the industry in which we operate. So we're going to look first of all at the global market, and then we're going to move on and have a look at the market in Beeland and just see where we sort of sit in the scheme of things. Okay then, so what's going on in the global market then? So in 2021 then, consumers spent the equivalent of 7.5 billion dollars on outdoor grills and accessories across the globe. The largest market to this then, which was 2.85 billion, which is 38% of the global market, was in the US, the United States of America. Other countries then have got extensive outdoor grilling cultures: Argentina, Australia, Brazil, Canada, and South Africa, and those sales were strong. In 2021, sales in Beeland were worth the equivalent of 0.55 billion. What you can see in here then is Beeland is a European company. It's not mentioned in there as being one of the countries that have got extensive outdoor grilling culture. So there may be opportunities there to grow the market as such. Now, with reference to this, what we need to think about then is whether or not we should be moving into any of these other countries. And you need to think about the things that you must consider in here. There could be barriers to entry. As we'll see in a few minutes' time, there are 4 global brands in here, and it may be difficult for us to break into a market where those global brands have got real dominance in there. So that might be a bit of an issue. So it could be a bit of a barrier to entry. There is the cost associated with exporting as well, which is something that would need to be built into things like the costing strategy of the organisation. And then finally, you've got to think about things like our long-term aims. You know, we want to become carbon neutral within 6 years in here. In terms of exporting, you've got to think about, you know, air miles or ground miles, and whether or not that could have a negative impact in relation to our intention to become carbon neutral. Now, the other thing to just consider in here then is if we were thinking and if we were considering possibly, you know, moving into a different global market in here, we must consider how we could plan for that, I think, is the key thing. And we would also need to think about what we anticipate our sales are going to be. Now, again, one of the things that we could use in here is we could potentially think about using time series analysis in here to actually help us to establish what those anticipated sales might be. And that's going to be particularly useful, actually, because if you remember rightly, 12% of our sales are currently through third-party agents to other countries. So it's possibly something that we could use in there as a basis to find the trajectory in terms of what we think might happen in the future in relation to these different locations. So again, something sort of food for thought in there. This is really pointing towards time series analysis for me. Now, again, I'm not saying we definitely are thinking about moving into another location, but it would seem like that is an option for us, I think, is probably the best way of putting it. Now, the global market, as we know, it's quite big. There's quite a lot going on. It is dominated, though, as I said, by specialist grill brands. They design, they manufacture, and they sell their outdoor grills and accessories, very similar to what we do at FireWorks, okay, but this is on a dominant scale, yeah. So we've got the market which is dominated by these grill brands, and as you can see on your pie chart there, this just gives us a breakdown of how the global market is broken down. As you can see, 70% of it is specialist global brands. 20% of it is specialist regional brands. We are one of those specialist regional brands in Beeland. And then you've got the 10%, which are your non-specialist brands. So as we can see, the world market is absolutely dominated by the 4 global brands there, which is possibly going to create a bit of a barrier to us for expanding into different locations. The other thing to just note as well is these global brands, are going to be enjoying a bigger cost benefit than somebody like FireWorks because of economies of scale, which in effect, if you think about it, you know, the more efficient you are in terms of economies of scale, okay, that means you're going to be saving cost per unit. What that ultimately means is that you've got additional profits. If you've got additional profits, you're either going to pay those out in the form of dividends to your shareholders, or it's going to allow you to reinvest that back into the organisation itself, which, if you think about it, means that these global brands are going to be at the forefront of any sort of developments in relation to this particular industry. And they're going to have the spare resources to actually allow them to drive it forward as well. Okay, so there's always going to be continuous development and continuous improvement, which FireWorks are obviously going to have to remain competitive as well. Okay, so that's your broken down version in there. As I said, we are part of the 20% in there. So what are these all about then? Specialist global brands, there's 4. Okay, there's 4 of them. They originated and they were still based in the United States. They sell their products globally, obviously, specialist global brands. This is similar. Okay, very, very similar to the real world. Again, I just want to stress the point here that these case studies, you know, don't just come from anywhere. They are often based on real environments, real industries. So please just bear in mind that as you're running through this, that this is similar to the real world, where the main global grill manufacturers and producers and sellers are actually based in the US. And because, as we know from what we've seen previously, that is our biggest market. You've then got your specialist regional brands. There's 14 of those. They focus their efforts in particular regions, as the name suggests. They do not have global sales here, so they don't have a global sales presence. We are one of the specialist regional brands. Okay, so we are one of the 14 included in there. And then finally, you've got your non-specialist brands. These are non-specialist brands whereby you might have, for example, do-it-yourself organisations that offer their own label grills in here. So essentially, you've not got a specialist grill, you've got the own label grills in there. One thing that we could consider for FireWorks then is they could expand their product portfolio. And if they expanded their product portfolio, that could mean that they then fall into this sort of non-specialist category. Not sure whether that's something that we want to do, but we need to just be a little bit careful. You know, where are we pitching ourselves? Do we pride ourselves on being a specialist regional brand? And is that what we want to continue doing? Or do we want to diversify into this non-specialist area? Okay, now with reference to this then, none of the specialist brands, none of the 18, so not even the global brands in here, operate their own retail units, although they do have online sales channels. Now, I'm not sure that this is a route that FireWorks are going to go down. I think it's unlikely that they would be the first to set up one of these sort of retail stores, because I think if you were going to see this happen, you'd expect it to be one of the sort of global retailers first. But in the unlikely event that they decide that they want to open their own retail store, you've got to think about how that is going to be financed. So leasing premises, starting a retail outlet for its actual grills in there, and what would be the additional costs associated with that as well. Other things to just note then, a manufacturer might be tempted to open their own store because of the benefit associated with high margins, but there are issues associated with this. It could jeopardize any existing customer relationships. So you may well be cannibalizing your existing customer base there. Lack of knowledge about your target market, you know, where do you actually place one of these retail stores? And lack of resources, time and skills in there, because this is a completely different approach. Okay then, right, I think that's probably quite a good point for us to have a quick 5 minutes break there. Just a quick comfort break. So it is now 11:07 as per my clock at the bottom of the screen there. So what we'll do is we'll have 5 minutes. We'll come back then at 3 minutes past. Okay, so 3 minutes past the hour. Have 5 minutes. I'll see you back 5 minutes time, 3 minutes past the hour. Thank you. Hi there, everybody, and welcome back from what was a very short break, just 5 minutes in there, but gave you an opportunity to get away from your screens. I'd like to just pick up then where we left off, which was dealing with not the global market, because obviously we've run through that, but now looking at the market in Beeland. So this is the one that we're obviously part of as it stands now. So in 2021 then, sales in Beeland were worth the equivalent of 0.55 billion, as we've seen previously. You can see there that that's quite a significant element actually of the global sales at 7.3%. Now again, looking at this, you can see that the global brands still dominate, but only just in here, but they still dominate, but it's nowhere near as big a domination as when we look at the global market as a whole in there, because the global market, if you remember rightly, was 70%. So here it's 52%. So global brands then less than dominant in Beeland than the world as a whole, but it is still the largest market. You've then got the specialist regional brands, which obviously we are part of, and the non-specialist brands in there. Okay, so in reference to this then, so the 4 specialist global brands then are less dominant. They've got 52 versus 70% in terms of the global market. There are 3 specialist regional brands that sell within Beeland, and we're one of them. And we are the largest in terms of our sales value as well. So we are the market leader as such in Beeland when we're looking at the specialist regional suppliers. Non-specialist brands then, as you can see there, have got a greater influence on the market in Beeland than they do on the rest of the world. Why? Customers in Beeland are a lot more price sensitive, okay, unlike elsewhere, consumers elsewhere. So they're less inclined to be swayed by brand names. Okay, now that is important. So in the exam, if we are in a position where there is a potential for us to launch a new product, what you've got to be mindful of is that price is something that our customer base really does focus on. They are price sensitive customers. So we need to be very, very careful that we are not pricing ourselves out of the market. If you think about it, one of the ways that we could potentially do that is by using something like target costing in relation to new products, whereby we establish the selling price from our consumers and then establish whether we've got any cost gaps. So that could be something to consider. And therefore, that's also going to have an impact on sensitivity analysis as well. So when we are sort of budgeting for our sales units, what we may need to consider is what the implications could be if we were to increase or decrease our prices in there as well. So if you was to produce sensitivity reports, let's say for a new product, you'd maybe have to think about what the implications would be on sales volumes for increasing prices or decreasing them. And again, looking at whether there's any sort of payoff there in that respect. In 2021 then, 32% of grills were sold online, direct to customers or through retail websites in here. 68% were sold in retail stores. Again, just to stress, these retail stores are not retail stores that are directly associated with the suppliers. Remember, these will be third-party retail stores. This does represent a significant acquisition, a significant purchase for our customers. And therefore, they're going to do a lot of research first, because these are not going to be cheap products that we're acquiring. They do like to go to stores. They do like to have the tangible impact of that, visiting the store, inspecting the store, touching the store, touching the grill itself and getting the tangibility associated with that. So a lot of research will be undertaken. Now, a couple of things to note from this then. A lot of the sales happen online, so 32% of them. In that respect, you might be able to source quite a lot of information from that. So you'll be able to monitor your consumer behaviour in there. And therefore, you'll be able to use that for things like KPIs. I think the other thing to just mention in here is that this will then produce for us, if you think about it, big data. So lots and lots of big data actually available for us, looking at consumer patterns, looking at the different levels of spending, etc. So again, something that we can review. And also as well, from an E1 perspective, it will also give us information about what research the consumer actually undertakes. So what we'll be able to see is we'll be able to see the click-throughs and things like that from our consumers, which will then actually help us to establish our conversion rates in there as well. So we've got a lot of big data in there that we could utilize, we could optimize on the use of. Future prospects then. So the beeline market then for grills is going to grow on average by 5% per year over the next 5 years. Why is this the case? You know, this is not just finger in the air. An increase in interest in outdoor cookery and the continued development of grills, and the fact that these grills now can embrace digital technology. So for example, things like temperature probes, thinking about temperature systems and linking them to a smartphone app. Okay, now you know what's coming here then, don't you? With reference to this then, you may want to launch an app for support of your grills, and that can be used with your grills, which therein lies an issue, because you will need to make sure that you're very comfortable with what the costs are associated with that. So thinking about digital costing, the launching of the app is going to be a sophisticated addition to our product range. So it's really, really important that you understand the type and the nature of costs associated with digital costing and developing and operating an app. Now, this is not the first time that we've seen this. I just want to stress this point. It is often tested. So do please make sure that you are comfortable with the different types of costs in the short term that are going to be incurred in relation to digitalization and also the use of apps as well. Now, the other thing to just note as well is, as this organisation or as the market does grow, and if it is going to be growing at a rate of 5% per annum, we might want to consider whether we change our budget process. I've said to you already, actually, that this business does have an incremental budgeting system, which means that they take last year, add on a bit, take off a bit, etc., which doesn't actually mean that there's necessarily that much control in terms of costs. But what you might want to consider in here is, if the rate is significantly higher than what it has been before, whether or not we use this alternative budgeting technique. So it could be zero-based budgeting or rolling budgets from one period to the next. So again, I think I've stressed this already. Do please make sure that you're comfortable with the different types of budget setting process. So, I mean, all in all though, it's looking pretty positive, isn't it, for the organisation? Average growth, beeline, 5% per annum on an ongoing basis. So looking pretty positive in the scheme of things. Okay, so we've looked at the background, we've looked at the ethos, the mission of FireWorks, and we've also looked at the markets in which they operate. So we've got the global market, and we've also got the local market, is probably the best way of putting it. What I'd like to do now then is I'd like to now introduce you to the different products that we've got, because we have got a few of them. Okay, so what that means then, from possibly a costing perspective, from a budgeting perspective, not one size is necessarily going to fit all in here. So we need to make sure that we are comfortable with the different types of products and where certain costing techniques may or may not be more or less appropriate. Okay then, so this is an extract then from our website, and it breaks down our products in here. Okay then, so what do we have? So we've got our own manufacturing facility, as we know, we've got our production facility. Because they've got their own production facility, the key thing to note is that they're going to have significant tangible non-current assets in here. So IAS 16 and IFRS 16 are obviously going to be relevant in there. It says each grill then starts with a cook box, which is the base and the lid of the grill, which we create from high-grade stainless steel and coat in a premium porcelain enamel to protect it against rust and corrosion, which gives it our unique one colour finish in here. In that respect then, because the grills are being made in Beeland, there is that sort of local emphasis in there, and that could be something which differentiates it from, you know, your global suppliers. So, you know, we are employing local people. We've got our 3 sort of different facilities all within 10 kilometres of each other, and this is something that we might be able to optimise on. It might be one of our unique selling points that they are made and produced in Beeland. It might be something that, you know, residents of Beeland actually do appreciate in that sense. So again, that could be something that we optimize on in our marketing, for example. To each cookbox then we add components such as legs, bezels. Bezels then are the metal rings which are placed beneath your control dials. So, you know, if you've got a cooker and oven at home, it's underneath the actual dial itself. That's what a bezel actually is. So don't worry too much about that. And then you've got the dials, you've got the all-important cooking plates as well. Each of the grills then is fitted with the best components available and designed to provide the ultimate cooking experience. Again, quality, best. Quality and best doesn't come cheap, you know, and remember we are in a price-sensitive environment in here. So we are going to have to really focus on making sure that we've got those economies of scale in there. Remember what we said before, though, differentiation is a good way, or differentiation through quality is something that we could optimize on. And also as well, this made in Beeline as well could be a good example. It then tells us to click on the buttons below to find out about the different range of cookers that we've got. Now, although it says to click on the buttons below, you cannot click on them because this is a PDF document. I just want to show you, if I may, that they have talked about, this is the equivalent of you clicking through in here. So you've got the separate types of products in there. So don't think you're going onto your pre-scene and you're clicking away on your mouse and you're not getting anywhere. Remember, it's an extract from the website. So what we'll see is each of these in due course. Now, something that I really think is important and something I really want to just hone in on, if I may, is that we do have a customer warranty. Excuse me. So we do have a customer warranty, and this is a parts and labour warranty. Basically what that means then is that the grill cookbox is guaranteed for 10 years. Now, if the cookbox shows any sign of burn through or rust within 10 years, we will replace the grill completely free of charge. That in itself, I think, is a really good selling point. What we're basically saying is, look, you know, you buy one of these and it's going to last you at least 10 years. You know, what's the saying? Buy cheap, buy twice. So, you know, you might find that your retail units that are selling their own branded products, you may have to replace them more quickly. And it's highly unlikely that they're going to have these customer warranties or an equivalent of. So parts and labour warranty then, they're going to replace faulty parts and they're going to cover the cost associated with the technician in relation to that. So it's essentially like full warranty, isn't it? So they're going to replace it completely, or if there's components of the grill, they're going to be covered by warranty for 5 years in here. And again, they will be replaced or they will be repaired as part of that warranty. Okay, which is good. Issue here, just something I thought about. If we are going to be replacing these grills within that 10-year period, what is the sort of policy regarding disposal of those old grills? There's no mention here about recycling. So I'm wondering if there is maybe a recycling program or a trading program or something that could be adopted, which may well be of benefit, not only to the organisation, but to the individuals who own these as well. So it's really good, this after sales service that they actually offer, which again could set them aside from some of the other providers in that area. Okay, at FireWorks then, the grills are manufactured to such a high standard that they can offer an industry-leading warranty with confidence and with pride. These are specialist products, remember. okay, very specialist products, and therefore they are going to require skilled labour and also more expensive raw materials. And in that respect, you know, the costs associated with these warranties, etc., are going to have to be built into the costs associated with the product. But they obviously seem to really pride themselves on the quality of the provision. Okay, but again, not going to be cheap. We're going to have to make sure that we've got really good cost controls associated with this. Okay, then now this is the equivalent, guys, of us now clicking through on the actual website. So what we've got in here then is we've got our different types of grills. Now, as I mentioned to you previously, with these grills, because there are alternative products in here, what that could mean is that that has a significant impact on our sales revenue and ultimately our profit if customers choose more or less expensive products in here. So one of the areas that I envisage you're going to see in here is sales quantity and sales mix variances. Because what you can have is you can have customers that can substitute products for one another. So because there's so many different types of products available, that substitution may well take place. So don't be surprised if you see sales mix and quantity variances in here. And what you're going to have to do there is you're going to have to interpret what those variances actually show us. So what's happened during the period? Why has it happened? You know, was there a shortage of a particular component which meant that we couldn't sell, let's say, more of the firecracker grills? So again, you've just got to make sure that you're able to identify the variance, but also interpret it as well. Okay, so the first one that we've got then is our gas grills. Gas grills, then you fit your gas bottle then, and you are ready to grill with one of our gas fueled grills. We offer two different models in here. We've got our firecracker, which is our premium gas grill model. It's available in two sizes, small or large. And then you've got your crackerjack model as well, which is the basic gas model. And again, that is available in small or large. Potential exam scenario in here, we might develop a new different type of gas grill in here. Something to consider is a portable gas grill, and that could be used for example, for things like camping or hiking. But again, in here with the gas grills, remember you have got four options already. You've got firecracker, large or small. You've got your crackerjack, which is small or large as well. So you've got four different options in there. And again, they could quite easily be substituted for one another as well. Secondly, then you've got charcoal grills. Add your charcoal and you are ready to grill with one of our charcoal fueled grills. Again, here we've got different models. We've got three. Okay, so three different models. We've got the spinner, which is the premium. We've got the rocket, which is the mid-range, and we've got the sparkler, which is the smallest. The spinner then, premium, charcoal grill, extra lid vents, large cooking space, rocket in the middle in there, lid vents, medium-sized cooking space, and then finally the sparkler at the very end there, which has got a small cooking space. All of these, as you can see, require charcoal. This is something that FireWorks actually does offer as an additional product, as we will see as we go through. But again, you might want to do your research because charcoal grills can be a little bit controversial now from an environmental perspective, but also from a health perspective as well, because charcoal products are sometimes linked with certain cancers, etc. as well. So again, might be worth you just doing a bit of research, just looking into the controversies associated with that and whether that is something that we want to still consider working with. You've then got electric grills. Electric grills then, this is the newest of the range. Remember, this was only launched in 2018. So as I mentioned to you previously, you know, we are an innovative company in here. You know, we are launching new types of products. So this is electrically powered. And it's electrically powered, what we call wheel grill, and it allows you to grill, smoke and bake or simply cook. Okay, so it's quite versatile in that respect. It's an outdoor oven and where you can lightly smoke your food in it using flavoured wood pellets. So you still get that smoky thing that you would have associated with grilling. This is quite advanced, and because it's quite advanced, it's highly likely that this is going to require more manufacturing. It's going to be a more complex, is probably the best way of putting it, manufacturing process. So what do we have? We've just got one option. It's our wheel premium electronic grill, available in small and large. Could there be other options associated with this electronic grill? You know, may we be in a position where we can possibly add to that particular range? And then finally, you've got your accessories. So outdoor grill accessories then, grilling tools, grilling racks, gloves, aprons, grill cookbooks, obviously something that Catherine is going to be very, very involved in, and our own range of charcoal as well. These accessories will obviously have a very different price point than the actual grills themselves. However, it could be a good way of increasing your overall sales. Because of the fact that they've got a lower price point, it might mean that consumers add several accessories to the purchasing of their grills. Okay, so that is our products in there. Make sure that you are fully familiar with all of the products that we've got and have a think about where you think they could possibly diversify. And again, I cannot stress enough how important it is to look at the industry itself, do your own research, have a look at the industry analysis, what is interesting at the moment, how are things changing in that particular environment. Right, let's get to know the people then. So the people then, the directors, and then we'll have a look at how the departments are structured. Throughout, with all of our directors in here, innovation is absolutely there in all of those streams. Okay, so creating new products, improving their existing products, improving manufacturing processes, reducing the carbon footprint. They're very much forward thinking, I think it is fair to say, across the board in here. So we've got Catherine. As you know, you've met Catherine previously. She's the managing director, youngest child of the company's founders, David and Debbie. Trained as a chef, as we already know, lots of experience with well-renowned restaurants. She's joined the company in 2014 and immersed herself in all aspects of the business. So she was obviously very closely mentored by her parents, David and Debbie. She's responsible for the company. She's looking at the future direction, the product development in there, the growth, and is keen to innovate as much as possible as well. Wants to increase the reputation of the grills, which produce delicious food. There's that emphasis in there again, isn't there, on not just thinking about it as a grill, but thinking about the whole experience associated with it. Now, something to consider from P1 perspective in here is that looking at product development, looking at growth, looking at, the future trajectory of the organisation, there is inevitably going to be uncertainty and risk associated with the future of the organisation. You will need to know the types of tools that can be used to manage that risk and uncertainty. So thinking about things like sensitivity analysis, what if analysis, expected values, dealing with time series analysis, decision trees, payoff tables, all of which are going to be tools that you can help to manage that risk. Okay, so very much about thinking about the future. We've then got Ben Bruce. Ben Bruce is our finance director. Remember that name. Remember, you work in the finance function. So Ben Bruce is ultimately going to be in charge of your position, your role, and been there ages, 12 years. Okay, so 12 years working for FireWorks. He is CIMA qualified, and because he's CIMA qualified, key thing to remember is Ben is obviously going to be aware of the CIMA Code of Ethics, has to be from a continual professional development perspective. Ben has limited experience in other companies, but he has got a very strong business acumen and technical experience, which means that it was voted unanimously to promote him to finance director in 2021. So he's relatively new to the finance director position, albeit has worked for the company for 12 years. He did get his qualification with the company, so he obviously feels very supported, but he's relatively new. Okay, now you would like to think that as a CIMA qualified individual that he has continued with his continual professional development, but you may have to support in some of the decision making. We've then got Mavis Jones. Mavis is our production director. She's a qualified engineer. She's worked for 2 other metalwork companies prior to joining FireWorks, but has been with the company for many, many years now. She joined in 1994. She's overseen all of the production of all the models that we've got. She is also very, very keen on enjoying good relationships with our suppliers who are involved in the production process, so the key suppliers in there. You know, it's pretty obvious in here that these relationships are really important. Particularly for things like, you know, inventories, we need to make sure that we have got access to the raw materials that we need so that we can then produce our products, so that we can then sell them on to our customers. In terms of those relationships, something to maybe consider is how those relationships could be mined further. You know, if you've got really, really strong relationships with your suppliers, there might be opportunities in there for things like economic order quantities, and also just-in-time delivery as well for some of the components. So thinking about alternatives to the way that they do things now. We've then got Sebastian. Sebastian's our sales and marketing director. He's been with the board not long, actually. He was elected shortly before Ben Bruce in 2021. That's when Ben Bruce was actually added to the board. He was employed as a sales manager, however, previously to that, and they've worked together for decades. He attends numerous fairs, industry events, and has extensive contacts with loyal customers. He believes that we are in a position where we can increase our market share, interestingly. So the market share in B-land or the market share internationally, that's something that we'll have to see as we go through. What you've got to remember in here then is if we are looking at increasing our market share, then we are going to be in a situation where that's going to result in sales variances. And again, I've already talked about sales variances, but you need to know how to interpret them. That's the key thing. Okay, very nearly there then with our teams. So Human Resource Director, Jane. Jane, been with the company a few years now, 2016, ensuring then that the human resource plan supports the company's long-term goals. She recruits suitably qualified staff. Unqualified staff is going to have an adverse impact on things like labour efficiency and labour efficiency variances. So there is a lot of emphasis there on suitably qualified staff, isn't there? So something to look out for. It might be a potential weakness if that doesn't actually happen. She writes the induction. She does all of the induction programs and the handbooks and the protocols, etc., and works really closely with Ben and Mavis. And then finally, we have our distribution and logistics director, Jack Lyons in there. Jack has been in charge of distribution and logistics for over 15 years. During this time, then the demands of customers have increased in complexity and volume. Okay, that's interesting. Now, because there has been an increase in complexity and volumes, remember he's the distribution and logistics director, so we might want to think about the way that we budget for this department because of those extra complexities. So for example, activity-based budgeting might be an alternative to what they currently do. Jack is responsible for the warehousing, the drivers, the logistics and the admin, and he also maintains the contracts with the many courier companies. That's interesting, many courier companies. So we obviously don't just use, you know, one specific courier company for the distribution of our products. Could that be streamlined? Is there something that we can do there to ensure that we're in a position where we're getting better economies of scale and things like that? So these might be things that we need to consider. Cost structures then. We might have new courier companies. We might need to select some new couriers. We might have to therefore compare and contrast different couriers against each other. That is something that is increasingly tested. We see quite a lot of situations where you might be given 2 or 3 different alternatives, and you will have to say from the information presented which might be the fairest option. So that's your board basically in there. So that is how your board is made up. You've got your MD, finance director, production director, sales and marketing, human resources, and distribution and logistics director. Now, we then go into a bit of detail, and this will probably be the last area that we cover on today's session. This is the management in your key departments. Now, you'll see as we're running through this then, on review, it looks like the sort of corporate structure that they're using from an E1 perspective. It appears to be that they've got a functional organisational structure. So with that functional organisational structure, the pros are obviously that you're going to have specialists, you're going to have standardisation, you're going to have efficiencies in the way that things are done. But the cons are that it's quite a slow process because you've got a very long chain of command in here. And you can also find that there are potential conflicts between the departments. However, I will say that it does state in here that a lot of these directors do work really closely with each other. So it would appear that that's not the case, I don't think, in this situation, but it's something that could potentially happen. Because you end up in a situation where you've got potentially silo building in there. How's it broken down? Well, this is your function, guys. This is your function, finance. So the finance function, then, as we know, we've got Ben. Ben is obviously the finance director. He's going to provide the sort of strategic direction for the department. You've then got Savita, and Savita is the finance manager. It is highly, highly likely that Savita is going to be who you are directing work to, or Savita is going to be directing you on certain work that needs to be completed. So Savita is going to be sending you emails in the exam. You are a finance officer, and there are 3 finance officers, as we'll see in a second, and that is where you sit. So you're going to be supporting Savita. Okay, you're going to be supporting Savita in the accounts prep, in the budget prep, etc. Savita then is responsible then for the most of the management accounting information, the reports, and also the preparation of the financial statements. Now, as you can see, right back from the get-go in here, you are going to be assisting Savita with this process. Okay, so that's the key thing. So you're going to be supporting her with the production of reports, supporting her with the production and preparation of financial statements. You've then got your production facility. Now you can see in here then that you've got Mavis, and Mavis has got quite a wide span of control in here. Again, I don't need to go through each of these in turn, but you can see that there is quite a lot of responsibility in relation to the production department. This is by far the largest in terms of employees, and we'll see later on that it actually represents 60% of all of the staff at FireWorks, and therefore it's obviously going to be the one which is going to be the most complex to manage. And again, this goes back to what I was saying before about that wide span of control in there. So yes, they've got challenges, but Mavis has done a cracking job. You know, she has led this department successfully now through all of the different stages of growth, and it's the coordination that is key. And there is this emphasis on communication, coordination, and I've seen that quite a lot through the detail on FireWorks. And it says that the coordination between the sub-departments is excellent in here. So it's going to be important, isn't it, to ensure that you've got a smooth production process in here. Now, a couple of things to note. Zero-based budgeting, again, could be something that was implemented in here, particularly in relation to things like maintenance. We've seen maintenance actually specifically mentioned previously as a good basis or a good department to use for zero-based budgeting. Good coordination then is another key sort of area, because we need to make sure that we've got the right transfers taking place between the individual departments in there. So good coordination between the sub-departments is going to assist, well, inventory control, but it would also assist something like just-in-time management in relation to inventories as well. Sales and marketing then. We've got Seb, as we said. It's highly likely then that Seb is going to be in a position where he will use a lot of the big data that we're going to be able to collect, particularly from our online presence in that respect. It's highly likely that this is being monitored very, very closely. It's highly likely that Seb is going to be using what we refer to as dashboards. So looking at KPIs, looking at conversion rates, looking at bounce rates in relation to the website. So it's highly likely that that could be something that you need to manage. But also, questions we've seen in relation to big data previously have always emphasised how an organisation could use that big data more efficiently and more effectively. You know, how can they use the information about conversion rates? You know, what KPIs could they use? You might even have to come up with suggestions as to what those KPIs might actually be. And then you've got the department in there. So again, not as wide a span of control in here. So they're looking at the head of retail sales, website sales, and also agent sales as well. I just want to draw in, if I may, on Ben there. Ben is head of retail sales. Remember, that is the largest proportion of sales that we have. Okay, so that is going to be a very, very important role. Okay, so just something to be mindful of. Sales and marketing then, they work extremely well as a team, very, very closely together. The sales department then tends to instigate and manage the relationships with their own clients. Everybody works well with Jack. Okay, so Jack Lyons then, and his department in here, and that's in relation to, remember, the distribution and logistics as well. So there has to be this open communication, and again there is that emphasis in here that is good, and there is good communication between the different departments. As we know, Seb's interest here is expanding market share. Okay, so looking at expanding market share in B-land or possibly globally. So we'll just have to see how that pans out. And again, just got to say, in relation to this, usual suspects, variances. Yeah, so we're going to be looking at variances there, price mix, and also potentially quantity as well. Okay, almost there on this, guys. Thank you for your patience. So you've got distribution and logistics now. So this is Jack. Distribution and logistics is very much about the practicalities associated with distributing our products to our consumers. 27% of FireWorks staff are employed in this department. Okay, so there's a lot, the lion's share, if you like, of those are employed in this particular sector. Again, not a wide span of control in here. It doesn't look unreasonable. You've got warehousing, logistics, and you've also got sales distribution from the website as well. ABC, activity-based costing and activity-based budgeting, could be applied to any of these particular functions. Remember, it's all about the complexities associated with each of the departments. Something that I just want to hone in on, and it's just at the end there, reverse logistics have not been discussed at all. Now, you might be scratching your head and thinking to yourself, well, what do we mean by reverse logistics? Well, at the end of the day, there's been no mention of things like what happens to the old grills. There's no mention about, you know, the fact that we might recycle those grills on behalf of our customers. There's been no mention in here about the fact that, you know, we have returns and what happens to those returns and how many returns we actually have. So there's been no emphasis of that in here. And I'm surprised at that, particularly because of the emphasis in relation to sustainability and environmental factors as well. So for me, that reverse logistics, I think, is something that we might want to consider exploring and thinking about whether or not we can incentivize our customers to recycle their old grills and possibly link them to acquiring a new grill, for example. So have a think about reverse logistics and think about how that could be influential in here. So Jack, then, responsible for the distribution centre, it consists of able people. I love that terminology in there. They're going to be skilled workers, something that the organisation prides itself on. But what you might want to think about is whether or not we move to unskilled labour or a mix of labour in there, which could actually help manage our costs. But these able people obviously support with finished goods, distribution and logistics, and also the website sales as well. Inventory management, this is going to be Jack's key responsibility in here. So you might want to consider the implementation of economic order quantity or just in time in this situation. And again, we are surmising at this point, you know, we are surmising and we are sort of saying, look, these are the types of things that we might see when it comes to the exam. We're not saying it absolutely will be included in there, but it definitely gives you food for thought. Okay then, guys, right, I think that's probably a nice clean cut off in relation to your pre-scene material, because what we'll do is we will review the extracts of the employee induction manual, but also all of the numbers if you was to join me on our second session. So I think that's probably a nice place to cut off. Okay then, guys, right, now is your opportunity then for a Q&A. So if you have got any questions in relation to any of that content there that hasn't been highlighted, then please do pop them up. So I can just see now that there's some questions on there. So there's no significant IT person, it seems. Very well observed. Yeah, absolutely. There's no specific mention, is there, of an IT director or an IT manager as such. So yeah, a really good observation. And in particular, I think that could be a bit of an issue, particularly if we're going down the route of digital costing and the introduction of the app as well, and the electronic probes and things. So yeah, that's a very good observation, and it could be something that we need to investing. I think that's the key thing, because we might not necessarily have the specialist skills within FireWorks now. So yeah, really good observation in there. So Chris, yeah, so the number of returns is mentioned in the quiz on page 15. It absolutely is, Chris, and it's quite low if you was to look at that on a proportionate basis. I can't remember off the top of my head how much it is, but it is very, very low. So in terms of the sort of the reverse engineering in there, number of returns are mentioned, but there's no mention of what we do with those returns. There's no mention about recycling or how we actually deal with those returns to the business. So again, definitely something, Chris, that we can I think hone in on and just do a little bit more work on that. James, it says that Catherine is the MD. Is it an issue that there is no clear CEO, or would we assume that she's the owner? I would say in this situation, James, because what we've got here is a private organisation, we don't have as much corporate governance that you would have in a PLC, for example. So when you're in a situation where you've got a PLC, you know, you need to make sure that the managing director and the chief exec are separate, or should I say, not necessarily separate, but there has to be some independence included within that. So you would have a chairperson normally who would be the separate individual. Here I think, James, because Catherine is managing director and because she is essentially part of the family in there, I would say that that is fine. I think it's fine. I don't think we've got a problem with governance in this situation, particularly because we won't have the extra PLC regulation. Hopefully that answers your question there, James. Okay, any other questions there, guys? Thank you, Rashmi. So no question, but just wanted to say thank you, Kelly. Really useful review of the pre-scene. Good. I'm glad you found that useful, Rashmi. And this is just the start, remember, of your sort of pre-scene journey. You've really got to immerse yourself in this and really do have a good read through all of the content. As I've said, we've gone through and we've highlighted what we consider to be the sort of key areas in relation to this pre-scene. And as you'll see, if you are joining any of the other webinars that we do, that you will see that we really do deep dive into quite a lot of these key areas. So I'm glad that you found the session useful there, Rashmi. Okay, so we've got about 15 minutes then for Q&A. Any other questions then that came out from the additional information there on the pre-scene? Please just ask away. That's what I'm here for. This is now your open forum. So as we was going through, was there any issues that were highlighted that you're not sure about? Any questions about the exam at all? Sorry, I've got a question. So how often would you normally expect candidates to refer to the pre-scene and the exam? The interesting thing about this is that in the exam, you do get access to your pre-scene. Okay, so that will be provided to you, but it will be a clean version of the pre-scene. So you do have it there as a bit of a comfort blanket, so you can always open it up if you need to. What you've also got to remember is that on exam day, you also get exam day material as well, which means that you do get some additional information. So for example, I was talking before about FireWorks actually potentially launching a new product. On exam day, what they will say is they will say, look, the board of directors have considered 2 or 3 options, and of those options, they've narrowed it down to 2 different options, and these are those options. And then you'll be given a question based on that area. So you need to understand, okay, and you need to understand that the pre-scene is important for you to get to know the business, but you won't have to quote large elements in relation to that. I think that's the key thing. So you need to understand the business, you need to understand the environment in which they operate, you need to understand the sort of global impact, but you won't be asked to pull out really large extracts associated with that. But as you can probably appreciate, the more that you can take from the pre-scene, the better, really. So thank you for that question, really good question there. So yeah, a good understanding is absolutely key. What time did the webinar start? It started at 10 o'clock, the webinar this morning. Oh, good question. So can you please give an example of an application for any of the potential questions that might come up in the exam? Absolutely. So say, for example, you are asked to assess the risk associated with, let's say, 3 potential suppliers. So you've got 3 potential suppliers and you have to analyse their performance. So what you might be given with those suppliers is you might be given the receivables days, the payables days, you might be given the cash position. And what you have to do is then you need to run through each of those suppliers and say the impact that a high receivables days could have on their ability to actually manage their cash. Or you would have to say what impact it would have if, for example, their payables days were higher than their receivables days. So that would be one example. Another example would be in relation to variances, and this happens all the time with exam questions. So you will be given some variances, okay, and then you will be given a running commentary in terms of what's happened. So let's just say for all intents and purposes, you might have a labour efficiency variance, which is adverse. Okay, so you've got an adverse labour efficiency variance, which means essentially that your workers have worked more slowly. What you'll find then in the running commentary is that during the accounting period, there was a shortage of labour. And that shortage of labour meant that you had to maybe use staff from an agency instead of using the employed staff within the business. Now, a prime example is what's happened during the pandemic and the fact that there are less employees available for work. Now, the reason for that variance is the fact that we've had to bring in inexperienced staff who have had to learn how to use the production equipment, etc. And therefore, the efficiency has reduced because they haven't got the same experience. Now, again, the answer to the question is actually in the question itself, because you've got the running commentary there. Now, what you've got to do is you've got to mind that, I should say, and that's what we mean by the application. So hopefully that answers your question there. Zola, good question. So thank you for the session. When do the mock exams get released? They will all be released on the platform at specific dates. And forgive me, Zola, I'm not 100% of what those dates are. So if Thomas, I don't know whether Thomas, you're still on board at the moment, but when the mock exams get released, the specific dates, I think, Zola, you will get sent through to you a breakdown. Okay, a breakdown of all of the dates. Yeah, so you will be given a breakdown of all of the dates in there, and also if you are on the elite course, the deadline for submission as well. So we've got soft deadlines and we've also got hard deadlines as well. Arwin and Chris, really good question. Will they ask you to perform any calculations, or can we just study calculations and just focus on the theory part? Definitely not theory. The theory is what you've done already in your objective test questions. Remember what I said, it's about application of that theory. In terms of calculations themselves, though, Arwin and James, there is very few. Okay, very, very few calculations. The calculations have been done for you in the most part. So for example, you know, if you've got some ratios, those ratios will have been calculated for you. You know, if you've got time series analysis to deal with, then the time series will have been calculated and potentially the trend, etc., already done for you. What you have to do is interpret it. That's the key thing. So what does that show us? So it's not the theory. The theory would just be saying, you know, activity-based costing, this is what activity-based costing is. What you'll have to say is how activity-based costing can be applied to our scenario. So how ABC can be applied to FireWorks in here. So yeah, calculations, very, very few. You're not going to be using this calculator much, believe me, in the exam. Literally, you're going to be using your calculators probably to calculate how long you should be spending on each part of the question, because the numbers will be generally speaking done for you. So there's very few calculations, but it's application for FireWorks. Okay, so that's the key thing. So hopefully that answers your question there. Some excellent questions. Another question, should I repeat parts of the unseen during the exam in our answers, or should we respond as if we've already been known? Yeah, you need to be referring back to the scenario is what I would say. And the reason that I'm going to stress that point is because one of the issues that you can have, and this sounds a little bit strange, is that you can turn a question into what you want it to be, and not answer the question that's been set. So referring back to the scenario, referring back to the situation is absolutely key. What you'll find with the exam is the questions follow on from one another. You have to do them in a specific order. You've got no choice with this exam. So you've got to do task 1, then task 2, then task 3, then task 4 in there. So you have to do that. So in that respect, you're actually probably looking at a 12-month period in the information that's presented to you. So one task will follow on essentially from the previous one in terms of timings. So when you're in the exam, you know at what point you are. So you know whether you are 3 months into the year, 6 months into the year, or 9 months into the year. So yeah, it's in real time is what I would say with that. How would you address a question in respect of code of ethics at the same time? So Oriel, with reference to the code of ethics, what you would need to make sure is that any sort of response that you was making was in line with the ethical principles. So you was only providing information that you had the knowledge about. So making sure that you've got your professional competence and due care, making sure that you are being objective in your responses. So in that respect, you've always just got to have it in your mind's eye, Oriel. But there might also be a specific question which asks you about maybe considerations of maybe breaches of ethical principles. And that could be a specific question in its own right. Thank you, Oriel. Mention differentiation strategy. Oh, sorry, Thomas. So Kelly, are you able to enable chat? I need to post a few links. Yes, sorry, Thomas. Bear with me. Forgive me, I don't know how to do. I'm not sure where I can do that, Thomas. Bear with me. We'll come back to your question in a sec. There we go. I think I've done that, Thomas. Okay, so differentiation strategy. Yeah, of course I can explain it further. So with differentiation strategy, basically, we are in a position where as a business, we might want to diversify, is probably the best way of putting it. So as it stands at the moment, you know, we are in a position where we're specialising in grills. What we might want to do is we might want to expand our other alternatives. So if you used to think about, you know, what would be considered to be complementary products associated with the grills. Now we've got some of them already, we've got accessories, etc. But what we might want to also do is we might want to take that a step further, particularly because Catherine is a professional chef. We might want to start offering, you know, online courses or face-to-face courses in terms of how you can utilize and optimize the use of those grills. You might want to extend your range of cookery books, for example. So differentiation strategy means that you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, but what you're doing is you're looking at alternative ways of generating additional revenue. So yeah, it's about having complementary products that will support what we've already got. Sorry, Zola, so not huge variety of products, or that would be complexity of production. ABC, so would ABC be considered? Could they go the other way with marginal costing? Zola, absolutely, could go either way. I think what you've got to consider with ABC is we don't have to use activity-based costing for absolutely everything. Okay, I think that's the first thing to note. So we don't have to use it for everything. So maybe we would only use activity-based costing when we're dealing with our electric grills. So we don't have to have Zola one size fits all. Okay, and that's the key thing. So just bear that in mind, that Zola, it might be relevant for some products, but not all the products. So where we've got complexities, as I said, with the electronic grills, that looks like it's our most complex product. That might be something that we would need to consider. So Zola, hopefully that answers your question there, but I like the way you're thinking about the complexities associated with it. Okay, is there any additional questions there? Thomas, I think I have opened up the chat there for you, so you should be able to, I think, pop on there if you need to. Okay then, guys, right, that is about time then, I think, on that. If you've got no additional questions in there, some really, really good questions coming through, and it's really nice that you're thinking already about the exam and thinking about the application of the pre-scene as well. Hopefully I'll get to see you at some point in the future on your operational case study, which will be great. If you used to book on some additional programs with us at VIVA. Any other questions there? Oh, good question. I'm still awaiting my results on operational case study. Should I move on or study the pre-scene? I would make sure you're building that momentum and keeping that momentum going is what I would be saying at this particular point in time. It's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt you actually getting to know the pre-scene. And also as well, it's good for your own, you know, continual professional development as well, because it gives you an opportunity to look at a new occupational area as well. So, you know, it's really good for you from a CPD perspective anyway, is what I would say. So from a business acumen perspective. Next question then. So what is the ratio of the theory grounds and what the application? That should write my answer. It depends. What we'll do is we'll cover more about exam technique on our remaining programs, but it's very, very much application of the theory. You're not going to get many marks for just literally sort of talking about the theory associated with something. You've got to make sure that you link it to your scenario. And again, we do a lot more work on exam technique and business application. Okay. Right then, guys, is there any questions there? Or are we about there, done and dusted? Wonderful. Right. I hope you guys have found that useful as your first introduction into your operational case study for those of you that have not seen this previously. And I do look forward to potentially working with you on the remainder of the programme. So if you've got any questions, remember you've got your email address, which was info@vivatuition.com. If you've got any queries whatsoever, and this recording will be shared along with the supporting documentation as well. Okay, thanks ever so much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to working with you in the future.